So we've never found a mummy in a sarcophagus. They're granite boxes. These sarcophaguses are just a giant granite box that has been perfectly cut out of one giant slab of granite. So it's not four walls buckled together. It was a bowl cut out of a giant boulder. And then they smoothed out everything, made a perfect box out of one slab.
With sandpaper.
With sandpaper, yeah.
assuming, right?
Keep in mind, these are just slaves with chisels.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Even though granite is the second hardest stone on earth next to diamond. Therefore, you need a granite chisel or a diamond chisel to even pull this off. But then you think about it, it was perfectly shaped at 90-degree angles where we have to have laser precision accuracy to even determine the level of error on this.
Whoa.
So we can barely accomplish this to this day without our modern technology to help us do it. Okay? And even then, if you were to take this idea to a granite person, I forgot what they call these people, sorry. But if you took it to someone who cut rock and stone into different slabs, they would tell you what we're going to do is we're going to cut it into 4 or 5 pieces or whatever, and then we're just going to slap them and bolt them all together. Because we don't really have a way to just scoop that shit out.
Yeah, right. In a perfect,
smooth, polished, everything. And we're talking about 500 to 1,000 tons. And out of reference, our biggest crane today in modern technology can do 20 tons. 20 tons. These are 500 to 1,000 tons in these. And there's like many of them. We have found like 6 of these bitches in there. Okay?
Right. But when are they saying these things were built? Like
they would have said that like this would have been like the early dynasties. So like, you know what, 5, 6, 7,000 years ago, something like that.
Right.
4
And
or
we can't
5,000.
even do it today, thousands of years later.
Some of the stuff we could possibly do, a lot of it, no, we can't. There's just no way. I don't think we can cut out. Like maybe if we spent an abnormal amount of time and money to pull it off, we maybe could pull this off.
Right, but it came like straight from the bolt, like
Yeah.
a big boulder, and then you pull this perfect,
you just
smooth rectangle, is it?
Yeah.
With a stone slab for
Yeah.
the lid. Does it?
Yeah. It does have a lid.
It moves off and on, right? It can.
I mean, we're talking about like a 100-ton stone top.
Imagine you could lift and just move.
But yes, it can move. It can move.
But
yes.
it's
we have moved it halfway off of one.
I wonder what that
And you
took.
can climb up into it.
Is it big? How big is it?
They're taller than you.
Imagine putting a mummy in there. Like how small would that mummy look compared to these
When I
little,
saw the videos of the guy who got hoisted up on top of one so he could film inside of it, I mean, these things could fit many people. Many of us could go hang out in
multiple mummies.
This is like, I would say that it's comparable to the size of my office.
Which is,
This is
fair size.
you can fit a desk and, like 2 chairs and computers and all kinds. Yeah, I mean, this is like a room almost, like a small closet. And it's as tall as like I am, it looked like.
Really? So
we're talking like 6 feet from the ground almost.
So you can't just peer in unless you're.
I don't think so.
7,
I think you have to be hoisted up into this thing. And we only slid the thing halfway off.
I bet that took an insane amount of either manpower or machinery.
How do you get the machinery into those little rooms?
I was just about to ask that. So how did the little rectangle boxes even get in there? So
yeah, that's the other part is the corridors to get into this place are not even big enough for the sarcophagus to have gotten through.
So they are bigger than the actual.
Yeah. So theoretically, either we haven't found the chambers that were to carry these things in, or they were built already in them. And the structure was built around them as they went.
Yeah. They came from the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were just like, yep. And then they were just there.
Yes.
That's interesting that we wouldn't be able to fit them through the actual doorway to reach that chamber.
No, those, like, everybody's like, everything that you see about getting into that thing is like crouched and like tunnelish.
Really?
And then even then when you're walking through the chambers, and not only that, but they're like, not only is it small and closed in, there's no way a fucking 6-foot, 1,000-ton block granite box could come through here. Okay, let's forget about sizing for a second. It's absolutely pitch black. And there are no signs of any fire being burned, any lanterns of any kind in anywhere in those chambers. They don't have any evidence of this in the corridors. So, like, how would you have even seen what the fuck you were doing if you were trying to move the boxes through the corridors?
Right.
Look, forget
Torches, for sure.
Forget that they're like twice or 3 times the size of the corridors. Let's forget about that. And that the fact that like 1,000 tons is like insanely impossible for humans to even carry. So like you couldn't have done this. That couldn't have been done. We're talking about like, okay, there are either things that we haven't seen and figured out that are massive to the story.
Very possible, I suppose.
Or we're totally being lied to about this.
Probably being lied to.
Yeah. Especially when you find out that none of the mummies came from these tombs. We never found mummies. No evidence historically have gone back as far as I can go. Nobody who Napoleon and all these famous people who went and did all this excavation. Okay, they never found mummies in any of these damn things. They only found artifacts and other stuff. Now the vase artifacts is a wild one that we can get into a little bit because the early vases that they found are like granite and perfection.
Okay.
And they're all built out of one stone.
I don't know if I know much about the vases.
The vases are really, because they don't want you to, really. That one, to me, the moment I discovered about the vases, you, like, can't hide that one. That one's like, oh, okay, seriously.
Slide that under the rug.
Yeah, everybody just stop talking about that one because, like, these things are granite vases that are a perfection in every symmetrical way, but have handles that were carved out of. It's all one piece again. The way these ancient builders did things was one piece was built. It never is two combined. They don't do this.
It's stupid impressive. Like just to try to fathom how it was done.
I know.
You can't. Like we don't have that kind of technology.
We don't.
And we never have.
We can't. Like here's the part where it all breaks down. Cannot take. We can slide. Sure, everybody argues all the time, like we can slide a 1,200 ton block, blah blah blah. Like technically in the 1700s, we took this giant stone thing and we like put sheets of metal under it and like slid it for a long time, and it was this big deal. But like we can kind of do this sliding. When you slide. Yeah, well, that's another, because the moment you try to use wood, 1,200 tons will just destroy the wood into pieces and just crush it into nothing, okay? So the problem breaks down when you say, oh, you've slid it all the way here. Awesome. We now need to hoist it 100 feet up in the air, and we need to perfectly place it in between those other 2 blocks, like perfectly.
No, that's not perfect. A little bit more to the right.
A piece of paper can't get through the cracks. That's how perfect we're talking about.
That's brilliant.
And they never used any type of cement between them. They're just that close.
They're just.
So how do you get a 1,000-ton block up 100 feet and then perfectly placed into some place that has to then be like a keystone to an area?
Right.
This is fucking impossible. You can't do this.
I got the answer.
Well, it's sound.
Giants.
Well, you know what? All right, touche, dude. Touche.
Giants.
Touche.
You enslave them, make them do your bidding.
The Nephilim.
Build pyramids. The Nephilim.
Nephilim just, but like, dude, a giant's going to carry around 1,000-ton block?
How heavy do you think giants could lift?
Not 1,000 tons.
No way,
There's
right?
no
Even
way, dude.
I don't
you
know
maybe
what they do to lift them.
1,000 pounds.
But then you're talking about moving it from the quarry that it was.
Yeah, it's 200 miles away. That's one of the quarries. There was the limestone quarry that was like even further away, I'm pretty sure.
Jeez.
But
imagining us trying to carry, a couple 100 pounds that far of a distance, just walking that far alone.
Yeah, and they say it was 20,000 slaves, took 20 years or some shit like that.
I don't believe it. I feel like those pyramids were built like that. Like I've got a feeling those pyramids did not take very long to build.
No, they were very quick and very smooth, and all of this was very just chop, done, and we're out of here. And it was all pre-planned, pre-organized, predefined. Everything's known what to do, how to do it. The blocks, like you go look at the quarries, and it's like perfect blocks being cut out. I mean, this is all
What's left after the blocks are cut out?
like engravings, but are like there's imprints of where the block came from, where they took it out, and then there's also like spots where the blocks, like I showed you with the pregnant lady block, where it's like they just stopped mid quarry, or you see where they were left blocks behind.
Do you think it was because the block wasn't as perfect as they needed it to be? Why do you think they left blocks behind?
We have evidence and we have seen cuttings. Like there's been a bunch of people who've been studying the actual like carvings and how it was cut. We see perfect cylindrical holes, like someone with a tubular thing went in and out, and we see the spin, and we can actually tell you the rate of spin.
Really?
Of what it took to do that, which would take a diamond level cut saw to do this at that speed. And like they're saying that two people with a string and a like a piece of wood went back and forth. But like we're talking about like 100, 200 rotations a second. This is not possible.
No.
Not with the way that. All right, so we've also seen different cuts that are like actually straight cut slabs, but they go off and they just stopped and left that shit.
Well, exactly. That's
they
what
just
I'm
walked
wondering.
away.
Did something happen where they veered off just the smallest?
Most
amount?
likely.
Like, can't use that one anymore. We gotta move on.
Most likely, there was like imperfections. Everything they do is perfection.
Right. They didn't believe in imperfections.
There's nothing about those pyramids that are not perfect.
Which is bizarre. I mean,
well,
even their
except
location.
for like the degradation that's taken place and the people who've ruined it along the time. But other than that, like there is no imperfections to how they built these things.
I mean, and some theories suggest how long have they been here?
I mean, mainstream science says 4,000 to 7,000 years they were built. I would say minimum 12,000 years. Minimum. The older I get, dude, the longer I would say maybe 300,000-400,000 years, maybe 1,000,000 years.
Right, and
there's really, because the problem is the material it's made out of is indefinite. It's not made out of anything that can't last forever.
Right.
And I literally can last forever.
One of the points to building it with what they built it with. But
correct.
The other, of course.
And talk about sustainability and caring about the earth. These motherfuckers put us to shame.
A little bit.
They saw solar panels and said, dude, y'all are stupid. We're going straight to the source. Rock.
I mean,
we're just going to build this shit out of rock.
Using material from the planet to build this massive.
And that's the thing, though, is like, well, then what do they build it for if it's not a tomb?
Theories. What do we got? So,
God, what are the major theories besides my theory?
Why would it have been a tomb in the first place?
Dude.
Like mind blowing when you actually think about everything that went into it to build them. Just for what one? How many tombs?
Person?
How many tombs?
I guess they have a king's chamber and a queen's chamber.
That would blow my mind. Just to think about. Yeah, no.
Which those rooms are insane. They have like sound resonance, a bit like you can say certain frequencies of sound in there, and you can really get that shit to echo and channel. And the way it's been stacked into like a pyramidal shape going upward, and like all the things, and the way that the granite has been smoothed and everything. And it's like, they're like highly resonant chambers.
The chambers go into a pyramidic.
They have like
that's cool.
They layer into like an upside down stairs. Yeah, it's like an upside down stairs that they built.
Cool.
That you would see going upward.
Okay, so if they're not tombs, let's talk about some theories of what they actually could be.
Okay.
What's your first theory that after you decided they weren't tombs, right?
Mm-hmm.
After you were like, no, they're not tombs. What was your first theory of this could be what they are? What did you go down?
Honestly, I don't know if I've ever believed anything but something electrical. I don't know if I can, I thought, all right. I remember there was a theory for a while, which I still have a feeling that they could be related to this, and there's like something to this still, would be that they were irrigation systems. And that all they were really doing was taking water from the Nile and pumping it out into, which technically they're ram pumps. They can pump water upwards and into a higher elevated area. They can do this. We know this. So at that point, I thought for a while, okay, well, this thing's probably just an irrigation system to flush the land with greenery, and now you can start doing farming and agricultural in this area. And these are just giant ecosystem builders. You know what I'm saying? Like, they still could be I'm not too on that theory anymore. I think there's too much evidence behind the electrical part. And I know people think that's like crazy as shit because it's made out of stone and rock and all this like granite and all.
That's impossible.
That's impossible. Okay, I've done the research on this one. Every piece of stone and rock that has ever been used across the board is very electrical specific. They all have electrical properties that are specific to a role that they're playing. And then every piece that was placed in an area that it was placed in plays the role it should play in that area.
Like perfectly methodically thought out.
Yeah, I mean, this was not by accident.
What all types of rock were used? All types of stone.
You know, there's two main ones, which is the limestone casing stones, which are limestone outside stones. Those are the ones on the outside. Okay. So they use a lot of limestone. All right, and those have electrical properties of insulation. So they don't conduct electricity; they keep it locked in. They are not able. Nothing can trade. You know, electricity doesn't go through it, so they can keep all the electrical properties locked in. They're an insulator. All right. So now everything going on inside of it can now be closed in and harnessed,
right?
Essentially. Yeah. And then granite, typically by itself, granite's really not. It's just very strong. Structurally, it's very tough and strong. But they happen to use very specific quartz granite from Aswan. And this is like very rare, very high electrical properties because the quartz within the granite can conduct electrical properties. And then when you put granite with it, you have very high, strong structure because crystal can break. You put a lot of pressure on these quartz, you know, crystals, and you can break those, but they're within the granite. And then there's so much of it that enough pressure on the granite can then create essentially a electrical effect from all the quartz within it that all combine. Because when electrical fields meet, they grow.
Oh.
So when you have a ton of them all in there, all exerting, they'll all become just one big field.
That's so cool.
They'll all morph.
So they turn into one.
It's just one. And that's why I say one granite box is a cell. It's a battery cell creating this field of energy. And then you've got a bunch of them.
The tombs, right?
The tombs would be the cell of the battery. And then you got a bunch of them. And then what happens when those cells come together? You got a big fucking energy source now. So the baby ones combine, the big ones combine. Now you got one giant fucking battery looking thing. So it's some kind of battery, or it's probably maybe a capacitor, something that takes in a charge and then will release it. Capacitors are cool as shit in my head because like that's what Tesla used for a lot of his shit. You bring in an electrical charge and then it's like a little mini battery that just holds the charge until it will disperse it out.
On your timing, how do you think the dispersion of
you can do this on a timed basis or allow it to do it on its own? So it can get up to a certain threshold. Once it hits the threshold, disperse. Which is great because if you need 3 volts, well then it gets half a volt, 2 volts, 3 volts release.
Cool.
Or you just have it on a time where it gets a charge and you can release it or whatever. There's different ways to build these things, but that would be kind of an idea to me. It's like they had these whole chambers where they could close it off, these like tunnels out of the king's chamber and out of the queen's chamber where these sarcophaguses are. They have these tunnels all the way out going outside, but they have these. This is really where it's weird because they have these little, they put these cameras up into the tunnels and started going up into them, okay? Yeah. And they found that they had these blocks, these limestone blocks that were blocking them with iron handles.
Whoa, really?
Built into them. Iron handles.
So they could move?
Yeah, they could move these things in and out. That way, the way I see that is like you close it, now you're containing the capacitor.
Yeah.
You contain the charge, open that bitch up, boom, that shit's gonna fucking.
What's flying out, you think? Is it an electrical charge?
Look, if Nikola Tesla went there and decided to design the Wardenclyffe Tower out of that,
right,
and then he said that the Wardenclyffe Tower could exert a wireless energy charge into the ionosphere and he could transfer that around the world, well, then what the fuck do you think those pyramids were doing? I think they do more than that, but I think that's like a core base part of this.
Like global energy?
Yeah, it was a global energy system.
Which, you know.
Which is what he was building. He proved he could do it. And everything that's designed around his Wardenclyffe Tower, every fucking piece of it, it was an 8-sided pyramid with a top on it. that had an underground portion too.
Wait, the pyramids are 4-sided.
Pyramids are 8-sided. Actually, the Great Pyramid of Giza, the biggest one, is an 8-sided pyramid, which is a wild thing that many people don't realize is that it actually, if you go and Google Earth and you go look down at it and you zoom in close enough, you can see that there are actually 8 sides of that bitch. And so he made his 8-sided, and there's an antenna into the ground, and he already said what it can do, and he mimicked it all off of...
Wait. There's an antenna in the ground, but the pyramids don't have an antenna in the ground. What are you talking about?
And that's the part where we think we have discovered the antennas in the ground. And those bitches seem to go a mile into the ground.
A mile?
A mile, dude, if they're right.
How do you... Thinking of when we think these were built, how do you go a mile into the ground?
Yeah, that's
an antenna in there.
Look, man, these slaves could dig deep, dude.
You're right.
They could dig deep. They could dig deep, yeah.
Who am I kidding?
Which is funny because we have pictures of the Sphinx in 1800, 1850, 1860 is like the first photos we have of the Sphinx that I've seen, and it's totally covered by sand. Up all the way to its head.
The head.
All the way to the head.
Yeah.
And you can see the pyramids in the background have sand going up their base that we've clearly excavated out.
Yeah.
So we have not been around these things for a long time. We've come across them. They've clearly been dug into the sand and stuff, but like, I think it's way deeper. You know, like if they really do go a mile into the sand and then you look at the different parts of the stone and how it's been destroyed over time by different natural elements, then it's like, man, those things are way older than we think they are. And there is scientific evidence that someone has gone to the Sphinx and they actually did an analysis of the stone of the side, and they have came to the conclusion that the only way that the stone on the side could have looked the way it looks today is if it had runoff water damage, meaning lots of rain. And that period of time only existed pre-12,000 years ago in Egypt.
Just rain?
Just rain. Because a lot of runoff, you see the little pass of the water.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so you would have had to have a lot of... We're talking about a shit ton of rain, dude. Like shit ton to do this to limestone.
Like nonstop rain almost?
Thousands of years.
Just, okay, over
a lot of time. That's not like 100 years. That's like thousands of years of this shit going on.
And we built these pyramids how long ago?
Like 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. And we've never had rain in that area. It's all desert.
Right, so the math isn't...
It's not jiving. But you go back, and then, all right, so then here's what I discovered, and I said, okay, now I truly believe those things are 12,000 years or older. Okay? This was the one thing I learned that I feel like you cannot run from. But, like, of course, you could just make up bullshit, in my opinion. Well, the 3 pyramids are aligned to the belt of Orion. All right? I'm pretty sure, right? I think it's those 3 stars. Anyways, all right, I can look this up later. I get things confused sometimes when I'm talking these circumstances, but they're aligned perfectly, the 3 stars, okay, above them.
Right, yeah.
Except they're not.
What?
They're off by just a little bit.
Well, that would have to go along with how long they've been there, when they got built, when they were placed under the stars, right?
And we know that everything about these motherfuckers, sorry for my language, is perfection. This is not something they would have messed up on, right? Like, you are perfectly level. You're perfectly north. You're perfect to every degree we can analyze with our modern technology. Like, you are perfection, guys.
Yeah. They wouldn't have messed that part up.
You don't mess that one up.
So have we done the math on how long it would have taken those stars to unalign themselves from pyramids?
They enter perfect alignment 12,000 years ago.
Perfect alignment was 12,000 years ago.
Everything says they're 12,000 years or older. Everything. I don't know. Everything just starts to point to that.
I don't think you have to look any further than alignment, period.
That's what I said.
That's literally, that's
what I said.
Is the alignment to the stars. Because that it's the answer.
Yeah.
It has to be.
That's the celestial time.